hello. This is Christina Barn. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barn. Today we're going to be talking about the Attorney General Dana Nessel. Got into some national hot water, I would say. I don't know if it registers in brains like hers, what kind of hoopla that caused, because she had some kind of inkling that it would trigger, you know, I guess conversations when she said it, but that a drag for every school, and she said drag queens are fun and they make everything better, etc. And she thinks that, I guess, people in the news and Republicans or whoever brings up like, hey, this is weird that to have all this kind of drag queen stuff across the country and them reading in schools and I guess those are wedge issues to her. You got to talk about things that really matter. Now, as we know from a Democrat Party post in Michigan, they don't think that parents should have any sort of say in what happens in the classroom. They're like, where'd they get this idea from that parents are supposed to have a say in those sorts of things? And so I'm not surprised that she thinks that people being concerned about drag queens reading to your kids in the libraries and having school performances and etc. Are wedge issues. But they're things that people are actually very concerned about because I think they speak deeply to something going on in society, which we will talk about today. But she's not the only person of high profile authority who said things like that, and I've already talked about that, like mentioned the Scott Wiener and California state senator. Um, but we got some wacky people here in Michigan that we just need to make sure that they're no longer here. So we're going to talk about that. The uh, Washington Examiner, they've had some things from Hunter's laptop and had a specialist who's been looking at recovering certain things. So they have some text messages that reveal that he was pretty upset about his lover throwing his gun away, which I think is interesting content since his dad is like so pro on the guns, and it's like, bro, your kid who's a grown man has done some stuff that you have not acknowledged, which by the way he should be fined or either in jail for lying as an ATF form, which he's totally guilty. um so we'll talk about that today as well. And we touched about it a bit yesterday, but the Biden administration put out some executive orders, and he's going to war a bit with well, not a bit, but with conversion therapy. And when people hear conversion therapy, I think they think like insane asylums, black and white. You put somebody down on a bed and you shock them with electrotherapy or something like that. That's not what that is. And in Canada, they've already done this where they've banned conversion therapy, but they list it in the regard that if you try to do something that's going to change someone's sexuality or how they or their gender identity, which I think is kind of more relevant, then you can't do that. But on the flip side, if you were trying to or saying things or doing things that were trying to convince someone that they were trans or something like that, that's allowed. But to do it, to do something to be like, hey, you're uncomfortable in your body, I understand that, but let's try to help you get to a place where you can live as comfortable as possible because you're not actually a man, like that sort of thing isn't allowed. And so there have been ministers concerned about how that affects them up there. And right now it'll be tied to like federal dollars and things. But that, I guess that's as much as Biden feels that he can get away with on an executive order kind of push. But those are, they push as far as they can to see how much further they can wiggle later. So it very weird directives and priorities from our president here, especially when there's so many people crossing the border, just an astronomical amount of people. Uh, they're setting records higher than they've ever had before. So lots of things going on in the United States, but we're gonna have some laughs today too. Not everything is glib. I don't know if you'll laugh though. It's kind of wild what I got to show you guys today. There's a video of I don't know, this organization partnered with a drag queen to talk about birds and nature and climate change, and it's beyond parody. So that's what I'm going to start with when I talk about my funny thing. Hello, people in the chat from Colorado, your oppressive state of leftism. I don't know how oppressive it is, but it's pretty far left out in Colorado. Do your job. We got to pull that back. They said we got to laugh to keep from crying. Before we jump into everything, though, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on my website. I actually did write an article last night about Dana Nessel and had some good links in there too, so you guys can check that out on the website along with other sort of content as well. Please consider checking out some of the merchandise in the store. That's not fitted correctly, but you see that shirt says this is my pride flag, so we got that going on. Also got all kinds of other goodies like the You Are Not That Special, got the black tea mug, and Be Better Not Better. Plan to wear that tomorrow at a June. No, I guess no. Today's Thursday. I guess Saturday is a Juneteenth festival, so I'll make sure to whip that shirt, because we got a lot of people who are fueled off of bitterness. Someone actually once asked me, like, why shouldn't Black people be bitter about things that happened in the past? I'm just like, for what? Like, what good do you think it's gonna do? Like, we need to be constructive and move forward. These people on the shirt were like, they were optimistic. Like, they were done wrong, obviously, but they were looking forward to solve injustice and then march forward. But so many people they survive off of their bitterness. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't know how you live like that. So anyway, check out merchandise at the store if you like what my sort of content, what I do here, and you want to consider leaving a donation at the website. Go to blacktnews.com/donate. I appreciate everyone who does leave a gift, whether it's, $10, $20, $50 more. I really appreciate you guys. I know times are tough. We got to keep chugging along here, and if you cannot do that sort of support, I thank you guys for sharing, for liking, for commenting. Make sure that if you like the page, that you're also following on Facebook, because they changed up the pages for some reason, which, by the way, I don't love, because when I'm like scrolling through the pages on like Black Tea, I go in there to like to arrange my page, but then there's like a kind of a home page for my page itself, and the only other page I've liked thus far, maybe they're trying to force me to like other pages so they can understand my algorithm more, I guess. The only other page that I've liked is my book page for my books. So when I'm scrolling through the home page, it keeps suggesting stuff about, like, really far left stuff about unions. It suggests stuff from like my governor, my AG, which I should like be on their radar, I suppose, because they are over the state, but it's they not any like Republican legislators I've seen in my feed. They keep showing me woke sports stuff, and just sports stuff in general. I'm like, that is far off the mark. So I don't understand what they're doing there. I think if they are aware of what I post, then it should be easy to post things in my like feed that are common, like pop up some Ben Shapiro or Don Bongino or Dana Lash or the Blake, just things around that vein. So it's so weird to me that those are the things that they want me to see. Dumb memes from like pro union far left groups that I'm just like shaking my head at. So I don't love it, but anyway, they changed it up. So if you like the page, make sure that you're following the page as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, or you have a YouTube channel, please make sure they're also subscribed there as well. And also hit the notification bells. And I don't know why they make it so hard for people to see content that they already obviously want to see and made it known that they want to see. It's just really really strange. But anyway, I appreciate everyone who follows and everyone who shares. I want to thank Bright and Michigan Pack. I'm in their studio today. If I say something today that you don't like, no one cares. They don't care. I don't care. It doesn't work like that. They just like to uplift conservative voices. So I appreciate them always doing that. So first things first, you guys know I like to start with something funny, and which the story about Dana Nessel is pretty wild, but just bear with me because I want to share this first. Um, so this group partnered with a drag queen and intersectional environmentalist, Patty Ghani, to bring you "Birds Tell Us," the song at the Meadowlark, a message of hope for the future of our planet as we face climate change if we choose to listen. So first of all, I just want to note that birds are not real. No, I'm joking. I'm not one of those people. I just think I find it amusing sometimes. Yeah, birds are real. This is not a real bird. And it is a human being, but there's some stuff going on. So anyway, I just want to take you on a journey. So just join me on a journey really quickly, and then we will talk about the AG. But maybe you will laugh, maybe you will cringe. But here we go. We're going on a journey. Here's the journey.
Birds tell us that the world is changing, that the climate is changing. They sing it over us and around us, in their songs and in the songs they no longer sing. Will we choose to listen? Birds tell us. Do you know why birds sing just before dawn? People believe it's to tell each other that they made it through the night. As a way of saying, I'm still here.
Still here.
Maybe that's why we sing too. As a way of saying, I made it. I'm still here. If we hear them or not, will we choose to listen? Birds tell us there is something worth singing for. That hope, too, is a feathered thing perched upon the soul, singing, never ceasing, giving wings, reminding us something so profound can be a quiet sound.
Wait. So I started watching that. I didn't get through the whole thing. That they didn't even say anything about climate change in it. It just said birds talk. Oh gosh. Thank you for going on this. What's that gross? Thank you for going on the journey of whatever the heck that was. Of whatever the heck that was. I see. That's another thing. I don't understand. There's plenty of dudes out there who have nice voices and can sing. I don't know if this person can actually sing. Obviously, that wasn't. There was music and he talked, and I wouldn't have called that a song. I not really. I mean, there was music, and some of it sounded okay. But this is just not how I would compose something. Yeah, that was bizarre. And it didn't say anything about climate change or what the birds are telling us about climate change. It was, I don't know. I get maybe that's environmental justice, folks. But thank you for entertaining me and going on the journey with me. That was amazing. And when I saw on Twitter today, someone shared it. They said it was beyond parody, and I wholeheartedly agree. I don't. It's just like a silly little skit that you would make up, but it's so bizarre. Anyway, let's talk about Michigan. So Michigan, unfortunately, and I know people are watching this from all over, but unfortunately, we have been held captive by three women. Particularly, our governor has been very tyrannical. Our SOS has not been great either, especially how she's run branch offices. But talk about that another day, I suppose. But Dana Nessel is has always been the most kind of wacky of the three, and she started her campaign in Michigan when they were concerned about having an all female ticket. And she's made her pitch by saying, "Hey, that shouldn't matter if we have an all female ticket. There's been news recently that people have sexually assaulted women, so trust the candidate that's more likely to not show you their penis." And I'm not joking. I'm not joking. That was her campaign video. And the Democrats were like, "Yep, that's right. We want to be sexist. It's okay when we hate men." Um, which I think, frankly, we had marijuana on the ballot, and it was a Trump sort of blowback election, and there was other things kind of going on in the state. So I think she kind of got in because just kind of the wave. She was carried in with the wave. There were plenty of people, who I know who are Democrats who weren't paying her no mind. And then after they learned a little bit more about her, they're like, holy crap, they made some mistakes there. But she was at an event in Lansing the other day and made some comments that were pretty bizarre. And she knows they're bizarre, but she mentioned drag queens, and she believes that it's a wedge issue, everyone talking about certain things. She mentioned critical race theory too. So I'm going to go ahead and play it. It's about 3 minutes. And I'm going to I don't know if I'll play all of it, but I'm definitely going to interject. So I'm just going to leave this up on the screen so you know what she looks like. Oh, by the way, this drag queen in the background and that child giving them money, that's that was in Texas, and at a so-called family-friendly event. And this person was like I don't know if they were twerking, but like dropping like it was hot and other things, and the child gave them money. Now eventually the police did get all the children out, but I think this is the drag queen that has an OnlyFans page too. One of them did. I think that might be the one image. So anyway, Dana Nessel thinks you should have drag for every school, and that drag queens make everything better. So let's listen a bit to this audio here.
I don't know what's going on in our country. I don't know what's going on in our state. And, to echo some of the words of Senator Jeremy Moss yesterday, if anyone caught him, and yet another one of his tirades against discrimination in the state Senate, I am so tired of having prominent members of our state government create wedge issues that don't help us, that don't heal us, but divide us. And that's all they do. And let me say this. Critical race theory is something that I've never heard of before just recently. And I can tell you, as having, two kids that went all the way through the public school system, K through 12, they never heard of it either.
So I want to pause there. As far as critical race theory goes, it is something that has become a main conversation as of late, and I think a lot of that has to do with Chris Rufo, for example. He's been on a mission to alert people about what sort of ideology is really, really being pushed. And I think there's been insights and things about critical race theory that's been seeping in like for a long period of time. I'm a little surprised she said she had never heard of it because she's is a lawyer, and they're always like, it's a law theory, it's something in law school. So I'm a little surprised that she hasn't read any Stefanczyk and Delgado and other stuff. I'm a little surprised if that's if it's even true. um but she says she has never heard of it. Okay, we'll take her word for it at that. But it has had bleeding things into our society for a while, and asking your little children like, hey, have you heard of it, and they don't know, haven't heard of it till recently, that's okay, I get that. But it's something that people have really, really been pushing as of late with ideology, um all a part of a collective effort to really restructure the country. And there is a really big political advantage to engaging people, to making them feel like the country was so racist, and Donald Trump was the center of that racism, and that you had to put their people in power like Biden to save the soul of America. I mean, the New York Times started the 1619 Project as this revisionist history, saying that our founding wasn't actually in 1776, but it was in, when they launched, the slave ships, and they landed on the shores and other stuff like that. Which people have rejected the 1619 Project, but they still got Pulitzer Prizes and other garbage as well. But the New York Times, after they had exacerbated the Russia gate, they're like, well, we're going to focus on race in the country. And oh boy, oh boy, did they. That became their main focus, or a big focus. I won't say the main focus, but a big one. Obviously, the 1619 Project was a big thing, and the Black Lives Matter really rose to huge prominence in 2020. You had things like white fragility that just exploded, which people don't like to say that. That was like a offshoot of critical race theory, but it is considered a spinoff in the work. In the books about critical race theory, it does say that there are spinoffs. So, and then the person who wrote it also on their website, they are versed in critical race theory as how they explain. So a lot of the stuff is coming more to the forefront because they decided to use sort of this racial emotional manipulation as of late. Like, you can't be like, oh, critical race theory, all this stuff is a wedge issue, they're just bringing it. I'm just like, okay, but you guys are trying to say that whiteness is awful, and you're trying to relate really normal things to whiteness. Do you know how many times like I'm online and I might not even bring up my religion, and then someone will be like, I don't know, they'll sniff it through the screen, be like, we smell a Christian, and then I'll be like, how dare you believe in a religion that slave masters used in something. And I'm like, do you not know that Christianity is like beyond like American Christianity? That they actually had to, like, if you look at a slave Bible, or I've never looked at one, I've just looked at reports about them, but they had a lot of missing pages. Well, if the Bible is a pro-slavery book, why'd you have to take so much out of it, bro? So yes, there's always gonna be people who manipulate things for their perspective, kind of like what they're doing, but they'll be like, that's the slave master's religion, you're a slave. And I'm like, no, I feel very liberated by my faith, thank you. It's very weird, but they'll like things like critical race theory, and they'll relate like Christianity and Christian values to whiteness. And a lot of this is tied to like Marxism, which critical race theory has its roots in. And if you think I'm kidding about the Christianity thing, just hold up a second. I've showed this many times. Um, but the whiteness in America, white culture. Now the African American History Museum in DC, the one that's like 4 stories, they're the ones who put this out. They're the ones who made this, and this came out like in 2020. But there's just a lot of normal things that made this list, like family structure, nuclear family, father, mother, etc., husband, breadwinner, like some just kind of traditional sort of roles that I guess you may have if you if you're a Christian. There's a lot of things on here that are just spillover things But they have a specific section about Christianity and the belief that Christianity is the norm. Anything other than Judeo-Christian's tradition is foreign, and no tolerance for deviation from a single God concept. So if you believe in any of the Abrahamic religions, if you're Jewish or if you're Christian or if you're Muslim, and you believe that there's only one God, and I suppose there's probably other ones that kind of do maybe one as well, but if those three have a core of like there's one God, and we have disagreements on stuff, obviously, but if you have any sort of, if you that's what you believe, that's whiteness in America. Now what's funny about that is those obviously are religions that didn't start in America or by white people. But it's funny that it made the list. It made the list. So some of these really, really racist things, and please Google this, just whiteness in America, African American History Museum infographic or whatever. It's like the most racist thing, one of the most racist things I've ever seen. And people, I showed it to some people, and then I talked about it later. And like, oh my gosh, wait, that wasn't a joke. I'm like, no, it wasn't a joke. So all this, I agree, has been kind of exploding as of late. But it's real and not a wedge issue, and it's very important. So Democrats try to say like it's not in schools, it's just a legal thing. And then when you're like, okay, well, we're gonna ban it in schools, like, how dare you? So it's like, is it in schools or is it not in schools? But we know it was in schools because there's people like Kimberly Crenshaw, who's one of the people um, who are who's accredited like making critical race theory, who's like a part of like these talks where they talk about critical race theory insights. Like, so they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. So parents being involved in their kids' education and not wanting garbage indoctrination, that's not a wedge issue. That's very important. If parents aren't invested in their kids' education, so we're talking, she's an attorney general. We're talking about local politics. Local politics, not who's crossing the border, whatever. You're what is more important than your kids' education? I mean, their safety, their finances, other stuff like that, but education rates very, very high on something that's like a local election issue. So that, I don't think that's a wedge issue. I don't think that is a wedge issue at all. But they're trying to dismiss it because they know that it's really, really bad for them, which is funny because I was actually at the at the Democrat Party picnic last year. It was for Oakland County, and Dana Nessel was there, and so was Benson, and so was Whitmer, and they were talking about critical race theory, and they wanted people to sign up for school board to counteract Republicans who were very engaged in signing up for school board. And so when it was over, I went up to the county chair, and they did not know I was a Republican. And so I was like, is this a hill that Democrats really want to die on? That's what I said. This was good advice. I was giving the Democrats really good advice. And I said, because I've looked at the polling, and for every minority group, it polls badly with the exception of Black people. But once they see more of what the ideology is, they will turn too. So I gave them good advice. And then they're like, it's racism. I'm like, no. Critical race theory is racism. And I start explaining some things. I'm like, I don't know how much you know about it, and looked into it. And they're like, I haven't looked much into it. And I'm like, okay. And so eventually when she interrupts, and she's like, I've been to these events. I've seen it to the depths of their souls. Like, look, how do you see? That's just something you say if in a fancy book or something like that. That's not something that you can actually do. You can't actually see it to people's souls and just determine, yeah, they're racist. And these are people at these school board meetings, people that I don't know everyone who shows up at those things, but I've been to events and talked to concerned parents about critical race theory. So I know these people aren't evil. I know these people aren't racist. I mean, to the best of my ability anyway. But they're certainly not racist because they don't like critical race theory. But she's already admitted, this woman, was white one, by the way, admitted to me that she doesn't know anything about the topic. And I've already proved that I know a lot about the topic, but she goes to, well, those people are racist, pretty much, I think, to emotionally manipulate me because I'm black, and then just hoping I'll go, well, you know what, since you said they're racist, I guess I just gotta throw everything out the window. And so but anyway, I was a little stunned, but I composed myself and I said, okay, can't you look beyond the people who are against it and just look at the actual like merits of what it is? And then she's like, we just need people to run for school board. So I think maybe eventually they realized, and maybe it took a year or so, that it's not wise to keep going down this path of let's push critical race theory, which now though is diversity, equity, inclusion. So now they're kind of changing up their game a bit, but it still like exists. But they're trying to pretend like, oh, it's not a big deal, it's not a big deal, that's not a big deal. When they were like so angry that they were like taking it out of schools. Well, I'm sorry, Dana, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So I'm going to go on. Didn't mean to go off on a tangent that long, but it's important.
No, it's not a problem for kids who are seeking a good education. Drag queens. Okay? Let me say this. Drag queens, not only are they not hurting our kids, drag queens make everything better. Drag queens are fun. Drag queens are entertainment. And you know what I'll say that was totally not poll tested? I say this. A drag queen for every school. That is what would be fun for the kids and lift them up when they're having emotional issues. But I am just so sick and tired of having marginalized minority members of our communities and of our state be used as target practice.
So drag queens are fun. Drag queens are entertaining. A drag queen for every school. Now, she said this hasn't been poll tested. I don't know if I don't know how undercover that audio was. I don't know how many, but it wasn't like it took place in Lansing at a, I think this like a civil rights event or something. So I don't, it wasn't like an exclusively Democrat sort of thing. I don't think so. I don't know why she would just be openly like blurting that out, knowing that it would be taken across the country, and I saw it like being talked about like by some big accounts and other stuff. So it got national attention. And you can say she's joking, but there are actually drag people doing stuff in the libraries. There are people who are having like drag queen performances at school that are not appropriate. And then outside of school, there's like this event here, and that happened in Texas of all places, where they had kids go to a bar where it was a backdrop that said "is not going to lick itself." So, and that's a kid tipping a drag queen right there. So I thought her saying that them to lift them up when they're having a bad day was interesting. It's like they don't have friends, the teacher can't do that, they can't talk to a counselor, like you need a drag queen to do that. I would not have been cool with like the drag stuff. And by the way, my parents would have, oh my gosh, if I was a kid, oh holy cow. It's not cool. But it's interesting that they are pushing it so much. And RuPaul once said, and I quoted this in my article, and I quoted in another article, and I guess it's going to be my go-to thing. RuPaul said that drag is never going to be mainstream. It's not meant to be mainstream. And which is funny because RuPaul's drag show really made drag mainstream, but were at least widely viewed. But the reason why RuPaul said that is because the drag mocks culture, it mocks identity, it mocks everything, who you are, where you've come from. It's a mockery. And so there's some people who enjoy drag and they think it's entertaining, etc. but it is supposed to be a mockery. So you may think it's funny. I think it's like a minstrel show, but except for Black people, it's mocking womanhood and femininity. So I don't think it's appropriate to have something like that at schools. Especially where, I mean, children, you want them to be confident and you want them to be creative, but they are supposed to also be learning structure. And they're supposed to have guidance. And I think a lot of this stuff is really about not just breaking through social norms because the norms are bad. I think it's just kind of flipping the bird to any sort of traditional structural values. And I don't think that's a good thing. Now, some people might think that it is a good thing. I do not think it's a good thing. So if you want to go to a gay bar and enjoy some drag queens and you are an adult, I think you're a freaking weird adult, but that's what you can do. Do I think it's appropriate to have a man who has an OnlyFans account and gets on stage and twerks and stuff and is willing to do that in front of kids, to come in a library and read, I don't know, green eggs and ham? I don't think that's appropriate. And Dana Nessel, she I think his comments are sparked off because you had Tudor Dixon, who's running for governor, and said that she wants to do like legislation that people come against people who actually have their kids participate in this stuff. And if that was a thing, Dana Nessel said there's apparently certain laws that she would not enforce if it was actually legislation. If she said that she wouldn't enforce any sort of legislation regarding an abortion ban, which we have on the books, and when Roe v. Wade is overturned. I don't believe we have a snapback law in Michigan, but we do have a ban on the books. And Dana Nessel's made it clear that she doesn't care what the law says. She's not doing any sort of resources, and you'll actually have to take her to court to make her do her job as the attorney general. So she is a pure person wrapped up in ideology. She is a I don't mean this in a stereotypical sort of way. This is a legit thing. A man hating lesbian. Um, Again, her video that she came out with when she ran for office was "Vote for me. I'm not gonna sexually assault you because I don't have a penis. I'm the best candidate because I don't have a penis. There's no chance of me showing you my penis." And that's not something she said when she was versing Republicans, who she ran against Tom Leonard. She said that when she was in a primary. So she goes on to say, and you can read the rest of it on the Detroit News had an article. If you go to Black Teen News and go to my article, I have a link back to that, and that's probably the easiest way to find it. But she talked about how she's sick of marginalized groups, and I think I played that part, being targeted, and I'm like, but you're not a good person though. When you can say something so blatantly sexist, and I don't, for a party of empathy, they don't always turn around and show that sort of empathy to other people who don't agree with them. So I think at the end of the day, their sense of virtue is more important than everything else. Your rights, the protection of children, um, the protection of their innocence. I've seen some posts and people like say, which like different drag folks and trans people say things like kids aren't innocent. And and then they're offended at the idea of protecting children's innocence. And I've mentioned this a few times now, but Arthur Kinsey believed that children were sexual from jump, and he used as a source for his theory the torture of children that pedophiles would use, and like charts of when they would orgasm and other things, or what they perceive to be orgasms. Because when you like I was watching a documentary and how they were describing it, and I'm like, it kind of sounds like they're moaning in pain and terror, but okay, okay. But he wanted to destroy sort of this idea of like a polite society regarding sex. They wanted to destroy this idea of like Judeo-Christian values, and they just wanted to break through the system, break through the norms. And we've been doing that for a very long time. And now I talked about yesterday how we're just continuously going down a hill, and I straight, I don't know, to a pit of hell, and I think the car's on fire and all sorts of other stuff. So we need to push back against some of this stuff. And people like Dana Nessel, I mean, there's a ton of reasons why she shouldn't be in charge. I mean, if she's not going to keep the laws as attorney general, she needs to not be the attorney general, especially as Biden is going to be pushing against particular state laws and really discriminating against other people and hurting other marginalized communities. Like, for example, I mentioned yesterday how the if they go into it goes into effect with the title, their perceptions for the Title IX program, that it includes gender identity, they're going to withhold money that schools would get to feed children, like free lunches, which I was a kid who ate free lunch. um they would withhold that money if you don't adhere to their gender policies. So if you don't let a boy go on a girls sports team, or if you don't let the boy go in the girls bathroom or in the locker room, then low income families won't be able to feed their kids at school. How is that protecting margin? How do you believe in protecting marginalized people if that's what you're going to do? You're holding people hostage. You're holding people hostage. So I don't believe that Dana Nessel ultimately is going to push back against crazy stuff on behalf of other kids. Now she can come out with a statement and claim I'm wrong. I don't know if I'd believe it, but I don't know if I'd believe it. But people like her shouldn't be in charge. Not in the least bit. Anyway, I'm gonna move on. So the Biden administration, and we mentioned this briefly yesterday, they are against conversion therapy. And again, conversion therapy isn't like being in a black and white asylum with like all these things strapped to your head and like a pull down a giant lever and it starts shocking you. Which I was reading some comments on Twitter, and people thought that electroshock therapy was what people were meaning by conversion therapy. And no, it's just, hey, you're not, if you're a girl, you're not, obviously not actually a boy, so let's try to work with making you comfortable with that identity. So Ryan T who trying to think of his last name, who wrote When Harry Met Sally, or When Harry Became Sally, Ryan T. Anderson. He wrote a piece because they've been trying to do this for a minute, because the Obama administration tried to do this too. So again, if you voted for Biden, there were signs for people who were like, I didn't sign up for that. There were signs. You just didn't pay attention to these signs. You didn't pay attention to them. Um, but if there's certain practices that you don't think are effective as far as any sort of conversion therapy, as they would call it, or I think it's just basically anything that's just non-affirming, because the White House just wants you to affirm. They just want you to affirm. Um, but if there's like a technique or some kind of practice that they don't that's not effective or something, and they want to argue that that shouldn't be a thing, then that's one thing. But their objective is for you to not question. That's the objective. So how is that in the interest of anyone? Because not everyone who questions their gender identity, most kids will grow out of it. If you just kind of leave it be, they'll just grow out of it. I know somebody, their daughter was like, I'm trans. And so this person was like a lefty. And so, they wouldn't be like, let me throw you out the house and all this kind of stuff with that reaction. But she just knew her child and was like, I know my child isn't this way. But she also knew that if she overreacted, the child would double down. And so she was like, okay, well, we don't have a lot of money, so we're not getting you hormones or anything, but you can cut your hair and wear your clothes how you like or whatever. And so she's like, okay. And she just let her do her own thing for a minute. And, not too long from then, she, was like, it was a phase, grew out of it, realized she wasn't actually trans. Now, a lot of this stuff is trendy. It just is. Like Bill Maher, other people have been waking up looking at the data that a lot of this is happening to young women in very blue areas. Like it's leaning a particular way, and a lot of it's about a social contagion rather than people who have genuine gender dysphoria. Some people go on Tumblr and other places and are radicalized. Some people are probably watching other TikToks and they're in just that algorithm. And it's like, please go out of your bubble and listen to some detransition stories and stuff, because um not everyone is actually suffering from gender dysphoria. And it's unfortunate that people can't expect to go to some kind of therapy, so some kind of counseling, and be able to work through those feelings, because people come in with a self-diagnosis and people just basically go along with that affirmation, and not too long from that you can go ahead and get puberty blockers and chop off your breasts and do things that are not reversible within a short span of time, mind you. um there's a woman on 60 Minutes who like did all this process, including her detransition, and I'm talking about chopping off breasts, hormones, um, the little bit of therapy that didn't question her, and went back to normal within, like, as normal as you can be, because she did like start hormones and chopped off her breasts within a span of a year. So people are doing some really big irreversible damage to folks. So most people will just grow out of it, like the young girl I mentioned. But what if she was in a state like there was a case in like California with a woman, and she told her daughter like, okay, you can wear your clothes how you want or whatever, and she didn't know how to deal with it, I guess, because the- I it was hard to deal with, I guess I'll just say. But then other people convinced her daughter like, hey, your mom's she's not going to be cool with it forever. You need to legally separate yourself from your mom. And so the girl ended up going to court to have her mom's parental rights stripped from her. And then, long story short, and it's a very sad story, the daughter, who was trans, ended up stepping in front of a train. And before she was like even going to be separated from her mom, the mom was like, before she takes any sort of hormones, like, please put her through some therapy. She tried to plead with the judge. The judge wouldn't even do it. Judge wouldn't even do that, because the mother was like, I know this isn't going to make her happy. And you know what? Her daughter kind of knew that it wasn't going to make her happy, or she wasn't positive that it would make her happy. But other people got in her head, was like, your mom's going to not be cool with all this other stuff. She says one thing now, but what if she changes? So I'm glad that there was no one who got in um the head of the younger woman I know. But what if there were like counselors and other people who were really, really trying to affirm her and trying to make up plans and plots and pronouns and stuff behind her mom's backs? I mean, or what if when she was like, well, we can't afford all that other stuff, hormones or whatever, someone was like, hey, you can go to Planned Parenthood and get that stuff. So it worked out for him, playing along a little bit. But there are all kinds of ways that scenario could have gone really bad. I don't understand why the government, particularly the Biden White House, is putting so much stock in just pushing affirmation to the point where they're willing to punish other people who will not go along with it, including like kids at school lunches and stuff. or groups. It's not just like schools and stuff, but if you have groups, any sort of like group that may have some kind of federal funding coming in, if you don't adhere to that stuff, you could lose your money. You could lose your money if you don't let a man into a girl's bathroom. But there are religious exceptions, but we shouldn't need religious exceptions for everything. I mean, one, not everyone is religious, but people should have the right to decide those things, to choose those things. It's amazing what people will say. People have a right to choose, and then with like in regard to something like abortion, when you're taking the life of someone that is there inside of you because of your consensual actions 99% of the time, but you can't make a choice of, hey, I have an establishment and there's men here and women here, and you go pee wherever you're, do you have a schlong or do you not have a schlong? And that's, where you pee and your poop is dependent upon that. It don't got to be complicated, but people make it such a big thing. But I don't know who all's watching me from where, but I just got some advice. Dana Nessel thinks these things are wedge issues and they would rather throw these things on the back burner. I would put these things in ads and put them in flyers, and I would send them to communities of interest. I think all communities will basically be of interest, but even in spots where you think are going to be Democrat strongholds, they're not cool. They're not going to be cool with all this stuff. You send a flyer to a community of Black mothers and have it say like, if they don't let boys in girls' locker rooms, then your child can't have free lunch. See how that goes over. And have like footnotes or whatever of the different policies to be like, yeah, this is real. This isn't just weirdo Republican rhetoric. But let's move on. Hunter Biden. The Washington Examiner's had some good stuff on Hunter Biden's text messages and stuff. But they've had someone who's been going through like deleted data or recovered data and stuff, and they've had a lot of interesting stuff that I've covered over the past couple days. But Hunter Biden berated his sister-in-law Haley Biden and accused her of ruining his life after he learned she had thrown his gun in the trash near a Delaware high school in October of 2018, newly revealed texts from a copy of his abandoned laptop show. And you might be saying, what the heck? What do you mean a discarded firearm near a high school? Isn't that bonkers? Someone just throw away a gun near a high school, which, by the way, you're like, what's he doing with his brother's widow? Banging her. That's what they're doing. Hunter lamented that Haley, the widow of his brother Beau, had given the impression he's an abusive pedophile with homicidal tendencies, and said that's now in the hands of the FBI. He said police and the Bureau opened investigation into him over the incident. The Secret Service also inserted itself into the saga, according to other texts from Hunter, although the agency has denied involvement. Beau owned a handgun issued by the state, and it was in front of the glove compartment of his car. So, bleep you. What right do you bleeping have, Haley? Hunter said in the October 23, 2018 text exchange, just hours after Haley discarded his gun. There are 5 guns in Dad's house. There are bleeping more weapons in your son's room than in an armory. Where's my bleeping? What's my bleeping up? Owning a gun? Hunter added, how Haley is that wrong? So I guess apparently he had the gun and she didn't like that he had a gun, so she threw it away near a school, and the Secret Service had to go and retrieve it. And this is the gun that he obtained after he lied on an ATF form. You're supposed to, one of the questions they asked you, like, are you like addicted to any like kind of substance and stuff? And so he said no. And according to his own book that he wrote, he was definitely abusing himself with substances at the time. So he did lie on his ATF form, which should result in either some jail time or a serious fine. And it's a pretty clear cut thing that he did it. I mean, and he's supposed to still have his records up. It's within the statute of limitation. Is it still in the statute? I guess, yeah. So why why didn't they do anything? Because he's the son of the president, I suppose. But it's probably not just that either. I mean, Obama administration, there were people who would lie with their ATF stuff and wasn't really prosecuted either. And maybe they don't really go hard after these people, and they're just really looking at infringing on law-abiding citizens. I don't know how much they really want to stop criminals getting guns, because they don't care. It doesn't seem like they care too much about what they do with criminals when on the streets terrorizing people. They may arrest them and then they send them back on the streets. So the Hunter Biden gun thing is interesting, and I keep saying I don't want to hear Joe Biden say anything about guns, which unfortunately that's not working out because he keeps talking about it anyway. I don't want to hear them talk about it until he addresses this and addresses his son. And Hunter could they could at least have him pay the fine and just issue a statement or whatever. But maybe they figure enough only people on the right like myself are talking about it, and it's not really I don't know, a thing that the press and other people have really been pushing. But this is interesting. I'll go on. Hunter told Haley her actions made it look like he had threatened you and your family with a gun. I hate what you've done to me, Hunter said. I won't ever recover from all of this. No charges or arrests were made as a result of the incident. The lengthy text exchange was located on a copy of Hunter Biden's abandoned laptop within a password protected backup of his iPhone XS, and their cybersecurity person was able to recover it. Haley, who had a tumultuous relationship with Hunter following his brother's death in 2015, said she's found Hunter's 38 caliber revolver in his unlocked car and threw it in the garbage near Jennison's Market in Willington, Delaware. When she told Hunter, he told her to go retrieve it, but it was already gone. The police were soon called. These libs, eh? Oh, there's a gun in your car. Let me just throw it away. Not plead with him to melt it down, not plead with him to sell it somewhere. Just, to have someone in government that they know just get rid of it. Just, she sees a gun, flips out, and throws it away. Now, I don't know if it's just because she was scared about him having a gun. Which I don't know, if you're that scared about someone you're with having a gun, you should probably not be with that person. Not probably, definitely not be with that person. I don't know if it was just him or if it's just like a fear of guns, which he went on a rant about other people having guns, including his brother and his dad and stuff. So maybe a lot of it had to do with just not being okay with guns. But just pro tip, guys, do not throw away guns in garbage cans, especially like in an area that's like near school. It's just bizarre. And it was bizarre when I heard it, and it's still bizarre. All of this is weird. Again, this is the most like trailer trashy kind of admin, man. And I feel like I can say that because I actually did live in a trailer park at one point. So yeah, weird stuff. Last thing I want to mention before I go, there was a response. Ben Shapiro had tweeted something out earlier today, and I thought it was interesting commentary, because he was going on about the conversion therapy, and someone decided to clap back with it, and they just had a really dumb response. So he said the current insane language of the left is gender affirming therapy is to tell a little girl that she is a little boy, but it's conversion therapy to tell it's not conversion therapy to tell a little girl that they're a little boy, but conversion therapy to tell a little girl that they are a little girl, which makes a mockery of language, science, and logic. And so an atheist account was like, but this is okay. And the meme says teaching kids to ask magical beings to solve their problems creates irresponsible adults who fail to find solutions. And I I don't understand people who feel so strongly about criticizing Christianity or religion in general, but I'm a Christian, so we'll go with that. And they don't know like anything about it. Like that this is not like a an accurate depiction of how a Christian's life is supposed to be. Like you do pray to I wouldn't say magical. I mean they're just all powerful being an all powerful being. Um Mostly for his will to be done, I suppose, and for guidance, sometimes for grace, for forgiveness, to help you be able to bear some certain things. But as far as thinking that it's just, I don't know, like a way to dodge responsibility, is that how you look at the world and you see people who are unchurched and who reject any sort of faith? Are those the ones who are like, let me like build myself up and raise myself up by my bootstraps? Are those the kind of people that are not religious? Cuz cuz my I know who my God is, but people on the left, their God is government. And even though they don't trust government when someone like Trump is in charge, when their guy is in charge, they want government to pay for their health care, to pay for their college, to pay for their housing, or to stop rent from happening. They want universal basic income and all these sorts of things. So they're praying to a system and hoping that it solves all their problems. But that's not what I've been raised to do or believed to do. I mean, John Smith, who, I mean, there was a philosophy that people were like, the settlers were just taking everything and not giving back. He's like, this ain't gonna work. So he's like, a man who doesn't work, he ought not eat. That you got that from the Bible. Do you even Bible, bro? I mean, I do believe that God will bless me, but it's like you whatever you set your hands unto will be blessed. So there's so much action required in that sort of faith. So I don't understand people like this. Other than they make criticisms, but they don't understand it. And I don't know. If I was going to go out of my way, especially to be an account like that, and I'll obviously make memes about that and just make it filled with so much hate. I just would be embarrassed to say so many things that just aren't true. There's things I don't know enough about that I try to like kind of stay on my lane about, you know? You may notice that I talk a lot about these racial things and critical race theory. Like I've read up a lot on those things. There's other like topics that I know briefly about, so I may mention things briefly. Like, so I try to stay in my lane. So people who are just so confident and want to trash, I don't know, my faith, I'm just like, bro, you could at least like before you make statements like that, why don't you like, I don't know, go Google something and just read a couple of prominent pastors and see what they have to say, or theologians, not someone who had a hot take on Twitter and be like, yep, totally. Numbers 11 is totally about abortions because I saw this pro-choice person read a bad translation, so I know what the Bible says now. It's like, well, why don't you actually study a little bit before you come up with all these opinions that are just silly? If you would just look it up a bit. I just don't get it. So I just wanted to rant a little bit. I just wanted to rant because this is crazy. So I know, just another attack on sort of traditional sort of Judeo-Christian values, I suppose. There's such bitterness surrounding it, and you know what, you don't have to be someone who follows, well, you don't have to be a Christian to believe and appreciate Judeo-Christian values and see the benefit that it's had to our society. Um, but man, there's some bitter folks out there who want to tear everything down. And you know what? You can't have communism flourish anywhere if unless you do tear down the systems. And back to critical race theory, which we started talking about at the beginning, um, they are well aware that you need to tear down institutions like Christianity to be able to implement that stuff. As a matter of fact, there's a book called Tortured for Christ, by William Winbrand, I think is his name. If you Google Tortured for Christ, it should come up pretty easily. But in his country where he was from, communism sprang up, and at first they came in, tried to pretend like they're going to be all kind of nice to the Christians, but they're they were saying stuff that wasn't quite sounding right, but they didn't want to cooperate. They wanted to smash and they wanted to destroy because they knew that that sort of faith and beliefs that those people had would be an obstacle to communism. And then they tortured those people. The only reason why he got free is because he got smuggled and paid out. So, and now that the organization that they had, A Voice of Martyrs, they helped other Christians who are harmed and tortured across the world. So it's a danger to their regime. So that's why you got stuff like whiteness in America and that list Christianity, and then people try to associate it with whiteness even though it's not a white man's religion, etc. And God's no respecter of persons. But anyway, that's it. That's the show. Thank you guys for watching today. Please go to blacktnews.com. Check out different content that I have on my website, different articles that you guys can check out, like the one I dropped about Dana Nessel. I'll be dropping some other ones very soon. Check out different merchandise that I have, like the My Money, My Business shirt. You guys can check that out. As well as the Constitution is a Glorious Liberty document, which you might want to get because 4th of July is coming up very soon. So you want some cool merch, you should go ahead and check that out. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com. I appreciate everything that you guys can do. If you can go the extra mile, I know times are tough, but I appreciate you. I really, really do. And if you can't, make sure that you guys are liking, subscribing, and sharing, etc. It all really helps. God bless you guys. And see someone saying hello. I'm leaving now. I've been over here for an hour. God bless you guys, and I'll see you next time.